Hello and welcome to the second part of this free training, the Client Boosting Workshop. And today our main aim is to approach the potential clients that you found in the last episode of this workshop. As stated in the title, the aim of this workshop in general is to help you double your clientele within the next 12 months. And this is a vital step in that process of doubling your clients, because how you approach potential clients, all the ones that you find on the internet, has a massive impact on the amount of those people who actually get back to you. Before we go on, I want to politely ask you to please just remove your phone or any other distractions from the room and grab a pen and paper, because I really want you to pay attention to this, make notes and take advantage of this lesson and what I'm about to teach you. I'd hate for you to not be making the most out of this, because I really want to help as many of you out as possible. So without further ado, let's get in. So the goals of this lesson then, the main one, as I've said before, is how to actually approach the leads that you've found as per the last lesson. So hopefully you've been going onto Instagram, you've been going onto music directory websites and BeatStars and finding potential clients. So I purposely asked you to not approach them yet until you've watched this episode, and we're going to teach you how to actually approach them properly. So I'm actually going to go into the specifics of what to say in your opening message to increase the chances of them actually responding to you, as if you approach them in the wrong way, then in turn that's going to make them less likely to want to respond, and that's going to hinder your chances of working with them in the future. One of the main points out of the whole workshop is to not sound like a sleazy sales guy. So we're going to give you some tips on how to avoid sounding like that and putting off potential clients. Very important as well, I want you to be able to determine if the people you contact are a right fit for you or not, because if they're not, or they don't want to work with you, then there's no point in staying in touch really. And I don't mean that in a negative, bad way. I mean, what's the point in focusing on someone that isn't interested in you, when you could be focusing all your positivity and giving all your value to the people that actually want it? So that's really important there. So just at the basics here, in my opinion, there are two main types of approach when it comes to cold outreach in these people online. There is a shorter pitch, which is obviously shorter, it's more to the point, and it's maybe 5 or 6 lines, 2 small paragraphs, just basically saying who you are and what you do, introducing yourself really. I find personally that this is a better response rate than a long pitch, so I do use this more than the long pitch. It just depends really on the platform at which I'm approaching people on. You can always test both of them and see which one works better for you, but personally I find the short pitch is better. Obviously the long pitch has its plus sides as well, as you can deliver more information about what you do, about your services. You can give more value in there as well to them in that opening message. However, you do run the risk of overwhelming that person. Don't forget, you've never spoke to them before. Your first interaction with them perhaps doesn't want to be too long. Otherwise, they're just going to be overwhelmed and quite possibly might not end up replying. Basically, you want to find a fine in between where your pitch isn't too short or too long. So you've got enough content in your opening message to say who you are, to introduce yourself very briefly, and to offer some sort of value to them and maximize your chances of getting a response off them. So first of all, I just want to sort of preach this anti-salesy kind of mentality. I don't know what you usually think about approaching people online. There's quite a stigma with it, and quite rightly so, because many people abuse it and many people don't do it to benefit anybody else but themselves. It's 2019. Sleazy sales tactics do not work anymore. That is a fact. Everybody can see it from a mile off, and there's no weird tactic, weird spell, weird hypnotizing sort of thing that you need to do in order to get somebody to want to work with you. That's not how it works, or at least that's not how it works anymore. The best way in order to attract a customer is be kind, be genuine, give them value wherever you possibly can, and most importantly, don't expect anything in return. I find a really good tip to come across genuine is simply be genuine, be yourself, and speak to people like as if they're a good friend of yours. Obviously, you're really good friends, you might enjoy giving them a bit of shit and joking around and all this sort of stuff. I'd say treat them as a friend that you haven't seen in a while and you're not that kind of pally with. Just be nice to them and speak to them casually, as if it's, just a general one-to-one chat, as if you saw them at a bar and you haven't seen them in a while. Before we go any further, I just want to express the importance of getting this drilled into your head, that the goal is not about landing the client or landing a project right now. You need to get that mentality out your head, because if you do have that in your head, then you're going to come across as really desperate, really clingy, and you're going to be pitching your services and your rates to someone that doesn't care and that isn't interested, and it's going to put them off straight away. I think a great analogy to use is that you wouldn't ask someone to marry you on the first date. That'd just be bizarre. And it's very much the same here, that you shouldn't ask someone to work with you on your first interaction with them. Before you get to that stage, you need to build up likeness, build up trust, and get to know them a bit more. So this first interaction is just about getting to know the client and them getting to know you. So really, there are three main goals that come with this first interaction for you. The first goal is to simply get a response, and I'm going to go through a few things to maximize your chances of getting a response off them. Secondly, once they hopefully respond, you need to determine that if they're the right fit for you or not. Do they want to work with you? And even if they do, are they your ideal client, or do they not fit within your genre? These are things that you need to know, because if they don't fit in with what you do, then it's probably best not to actually work with them, because that's where you can end up with unhappy clients because you can't deliver what they need, and you end up with bad reviews, and it all spirals from there. So once you've determined that they're the right fit for you and you've got a response, your last goal is to then stay in touch with them. And you can do this through a multitude of ways, and it all depends on which platform you approach them on. Say if you approach them on Instagram, you'd be asking for a follow back. You might even just ask for an email from them so you can stay in touch that way. Facebook, you'd maybe ask for them to send you a friend request. It all depends on the platform you're on, but the last goal should be that you want to stay in touch with them, and that will lead you up to the third part of this workshop. There are four main elements. Well, there's actually five, but we'll get to the fifth after this. But before that, four main elements I want to go through about the approach. So firstly, you need to greet them by their name, and that is super, super important, because if you use something generic, if you just use hey or hey dude, hey man, something along them lines, then it's just going to look like any other bot message that people get online. And there's that many bot messages going about that it can be quite hard to make yourself look genuine. So one way to do that off the bat is to type in the name and then just the first name only, and then they know that it's a genuine message and a person has approached them. Secondly, you need to tell them your name and what you do. So what you do, it needs to be really specific but not overly detailed. So you want to say that you're essentially a drummer and you're based in so-and-so location and you work with certain genres. Nothing more than that. The thing is, at this point, people don't really care what you do, and if you message them just talking about you, me, then they're just going to be put off. They don't want to hear that. At the very least, though, they do need to know what your name is and what you actually do, because without them knowing what you do, then they will not know if they want to work with you in the future, and therefore you will not know if they will want to work with you in the future. So if you outline, for example, that you're a rock drummer and you're approaching this producer, then without even asking the question to them that, would you want to work with me? Would you want to work with a rock drummer? By saying that you are a rock drummer and then responding to you, that gives you some form of positive response, showing that they would possibly be interested in working with you in the future. It's kind of like you're passively asking the question, are you into rock music? By stating that you're a rock drummer, because then you can find some common ground from there when the conversation starts kicking in. So once you've greeted them by the name, you've told them your name and briefly told them what you do, then you would pay them a genuine compliment. And that genuine, that's very, very important. You can't just have a quick scroll through the videos and say, oh yeah, I really like your videos. You have to pick a video, pick something Pick a song, it depends where you're approaching them on. Pick a song, pick something that you really like. Pick out something specific in that song that you really like and compliment them on that. And that also adds the not sounding like a bot, because you've been that specific with something that you like. They will know that some kind of internet bot couldn't just make that up. So the more specific you are, the better with this, really. But the genuine compliment is essentially there to take off some of the awkwardness out of the conversation. If you give someone a compliment right off the bat, then they're going to feel quite happy. They're going to be glad that you interacted with them, and they're going to feel good about themselves. And that's going to increase their chances of wanting to respond back to you at the very least. So if someone walked up to you, say, you was in a bar and somebody came and said, "Oh, I really like that shirt. I like this about the shirt. Where did you get it from?" Then, that would make you feel good about yourself. So the thing is, you want to pay a genuine compliment relating to their music to show that you are interested in their music, and also possibly show that you are interested in working with them in the future without actually saying those words. So here's an example here. Let's say you found a producer on Instagram and you want to approach him. So you slide into his DMs and you say something along the lines of this. So, "Hey Josh," you've used his actual name there, so that's a good start. Say, "My name is Eddie." You say your name, and I'm a UK-based session drummer specialising in alternative/radio rock. So you've said whereabouts you're based, and you've very briefly said what you do. In just one sentence, you've said all that information. That's a lot of information in a short amount of wording, and that is the key here. You've told him that you're a session drummer, and you've told him what genre you work with, so that immediately should click in Josh's head that, oh, he works with alternative radio rock and is a drummer, so I can keep him in mind if I work on an alternative radio rock project. You see how it sort of works like that. So the next paragraph would be, "I came across your Instagram profile and checked out your beats. I really loved the track In the Waves. I love the energy and the vocal melody is so catchy." So you see there that it wasn't just a generic compliment about his music. You actually state the name of the track you checked out and what you specifically liked about that track. And that specificness of it is absolutely key. You can't just be half-assed about it, because people will think you just coming up with it out your ass, basically, and it won't mean anything to them. So you need to be as genuine and as specific as possible. So a few things that you could sign off with. You could say, "I hope to hear from you soon," and then sign your name again at the bottom. I usually find that this is a good way to sign out, because you're saying that you want them to get back to you without sounding too pushy. It might sound really obvious but because you are literally saying, "I hope to hear back from you," it gives them a sense that they need to get back to you because you're waiting on their reply, but you're not saying it in too much of a desperate way. If you want to kill two birds with one stone here, you could always end your message with, "I'd really appreciate a follow back so we can stay in touch." You could use the first signing off, "I hope to hear from you soon," and once they get back to you, then reply to that saying, "Thanks for the response, I'd really appreciate a follow back." But that's why this second option here kills two birds with one stone. If you follow them and send them this message and it goes down well, and you end it with, "I'd really appreciate a follow back," then that saves you from sending another message about that, and they will follow you back straight away. The amount of people that I find that don't respond to my message, but at least follow me back because I've added this, is amazing. So many people do this, and when they do follow back but they don't respond, you can then follow up with them at a later date and say, "Oh, thank you for following back," and try to initiate the conversation again. So this is a really helpful way to end this opening approach message to a potential client. So split testing, this is a vital part of any kind of marketing, any kind of advertising, any kind of trying to cold outreach to people. So split testing, in this case, you'll basically have two different versions of this opening approach message to send out to people. So you'd send 50 to 100 people one and 50 to 100 people the other version. Once you wait for a couple of days, maybe a week, for people to get back to you, you can then analyze which version of that opening message has got the best response rate. So say if message A got 23 out of 50 people responding, whereas message B only got 12 people responding out of the 50 you sent it to, then it's clear that message A did better, and something you did in message A just clicked with people better, and therefore you should start using that. Once you choose either message A or B to stick with, you then repeat the process and then try another new message, and then you split test those. And you essentially keep repeating this process over and over again until you keep on constantly improving your response rate. Sometimes it won't work, sometimes you'll come up with a new message and it'll do really badly, but that's fine because you've got the other one to go to. You're just constantly trying to improve your wording and trying to improve the way you reach out to people. There's no way to actually figure out what the best way is to approach people without testing it yourself. So this is a really important part of the whole process. If you're wanting to keep improving your response rates, then split testing is absolutely key. So a quick slide here on response rates and what you should expect. So I really struggled with this to start with. You do not get good response rates generally from this. A lot of people think, you know what, I'm going to reach out to 50 people this week, so those 50 people are all going to get back to me and most of those will want to work with me. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the beast, that is not the case. So my response rates vary very much depending on the chance of what kinds of people I do approach. Generally, they hover around the 20% mark, varying from about 15 to 30% month to month. It all depends. So expect around a 20% response rate. If you get worse, then don't be too bummed because chances are the next month it will go up slightly. And if it stays at a low rate, then I'd look towards your messaging and look towards changing your actual message that you're sending out. If it's above that, then obviously that's great. Stick to what you're doing, but keep split testing to try and improve it. Out of those 20% of people that do respond, expect about 50% at the best of those will qualify as leads. And that means 50% of those people that respond will actually want to work with you or have shown interest in wanting to work with you in the future. So this is about what you should be expecting. Not everybody you approach is going to respond, and not everybody that responds are going to want to work with you. So it's important that you just focus on the people that do want to work with you so you can concentrate on them people specifically and give them as much value as you possibly can. So don't get mad or upset or down or beat yourself up because people aren't responding to you, and especially don't if they don't straight away. In the past, I've had people get back to me about 3 months later after sending the message. You genuinely don't know what people are going through. You don't know what's going on in their lives right now. Even if they've read your message, don't assume that they're just ignoring you to be spiteful or to hurt you or to be rude. That is usually not the case at all. So don't get mad. Don't send any sort of angry or nasty or emotional messages to people because of this. Just let them go about their day. If they want to get back to you, they simply will. The only thing that you can control is being nice to people, sending a lot of messages out. Those are the only things you can control. So if you're reaching out to plenty of people and you're being nice and genuine, that's all you possibly can do. So we talk about qualifying, and 50% of the people that respond will qualify as a lead. But how do you know that people want to work with you? So there are some things that you can tell from their response that they'd want to work with you in the future. If someone says that they'd love to stay in touch with you, or even just replies very enthusiastically, then that is usually a very good sign. And even if they don't directly want to book a project with you in the future, then producers tend to know a lot of other producers. So if you stay in touch with them and you provide value and you're kind to them, then that sets you up for getting referrals from them when they talk to their other friends who are producers. Other things can be like, yes, I'll definitely hit you up in the future. I've had that countless times, and it's the perfect response that you'd love to hear back after one of these messages. I'd hit you up in the future. So that is a really good, solid indicator that they will want to work with you in the future, and you should definitely follow up with them in the future. Another one that I quite often get is, what are your rates? That's normally what people love to ask straight away, but it's important that you don't give them your rates. Once you give them your rates, you've basically handed over all of the power, and from there your rates could just put them off and they'll never want to speak to you again. At this point, your rates aren't important because mainly you do not know what they want. If they just say, what are your rates for recording drums, then there's no point in just saying, oh yeah, it's so and so an hour. You don't really know much about them, much about what they do, so giving them a quote off the top of your head won't be beneficial to anybody at this stage. When someone asks, what are your rates, that is a great indicator that they are looking to work with you in the future. Although you should hesitate from telling them your rates, I would suggest just sending them a link to your website and just saying something on the lines of, hey, thanks for asking and inquiring about my rates, but I only do quotes depending on the project. So if you are interested in a project in the future, then hit me up and I'll give you a more accurate quote. Something along them lines. So that is the end of part 2 of the Client Boosting Workshop. I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and I hope that you found this really valuable. Just so you know, I'm happy to answer all your questions. If you have any queries or if you're not sure about anything, then please comment below the YouTube video and I'll be happy to get back to you as soon as I can and try help you out further. If you're not watching this workshop on the initial release week, you will be able to click or scroll below to get to the third and final part of the Client Boosting Workshop. So please scroll down to the bottom of this page or click the link underneath the video description on YouTube and you will be able to get to the third and final part of this series. Just to quickly point out, I have got a nice free gift for you at the end of that video. By all means, you could skip through these videos and get the gift at the end, but without actually watching part 3 thoroughly and watching the whole series thoroughly, that gift won't really mean anything to you or give you much value. So please go on to the third and final part of this series, go watch it to the end and claim your free gift, and that's going to be super valuable for you and it's going to help you out even further than what this workshop can.